This is going to be one of those off-the-cuff videos tonight. I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I'm sitting here in my jammies, basically. And so I don't know. I received an email the other day from a prior service member, someone who was in the military. And it basically goes like this. My name is, and I won't mention his name because I imagine he doesn't want it sent out publicly at this point. Thank you. And you will know who you are, of course. I'm a veteran of the Iraq War of 1990 to 1991 in Kosovo. I have watched your videos and I wanted to say thank you. I listen to you and I admire your courage. We vets are tired and used. Now, I'm not making this video to toot my own horn here. Far from it. Actually, this guy has probably been through a hell of a lot more than any of us can even imagine. So, what I wanted to say with this video actually is for people to think about a few things regarding our military and our military forces in general. We have essentially a voluntary army. There is no conscription. There is no mandatory service of any kind. And most of the people who are serving or joining up are probably 50% of them are coming from small towns where unemployment is very high. These are very young people, and they are, there's a reason why young people are being enticed into the military service, because when you're 17, 18 years old, you have you're curious and you have a very impressionable mind, and this kind of openness is very necessary for, let's say, propaganda of any kind to take hold. And it is, I'm not saying this to denigrate anyone in the military service. All I'm saying is that young and impressionable minds are to be found in communities which are under depressing economic circumstances, and when there is really no jobs to be had, and so on. So this is basically the picture of our U.S. military today. The other 50% are probably career people. They're older. They don't want to jeopardize their benefits, and rightly so, because they've served for a long time, and some of them are guard members. They're back in civilian life, being called up at will when the country calls them up to serve in some questionable war or something, and they're being deployed endlessly, having to give up and having to do many sacrifices in civilian life, I might say, to do so. It's not guaranteed that some guard member who is going to leave their permanent employment that they have been working at for the last 2 years or so, or even longer, that they're going to be re-employed just because the law says, oh yes, the employer has to grant you that leave of absence because you're serving the country. The reality of all these things it's very, very different from what it's being portrayed in the official media. So I guess that's just one thing I wanted to get out there. In the Vietnam War, there was mandatory conscription, basically, and there was a lottery. People had to serve, and those privileged enough, to be in the higher ranks, had enough money, were enrolled in college, could defer their deployments if they had enough influence and money and to do so. And so, because you had this large contingent of people who had no choice but to go, there was eventually great opposition to that war. Nowadays, as long as you don't know somebody personally who is serving in the armed forces, it really doesn't touch anyone here in the United States. It goes by the wayside, and these sacrifices are, it's just, I guess, part of a thing that is essentially ignored by our society. And I'm not saying that, basically me, myself, I was against the Iraq War to begin with, and I was very, very verbal about this. But I'm also against using people for cannon fodder in any nation. It doesn't matter where it is. So I guess I just wanted to get this out there as something to think about for, especially for people who are still serving in the armed forces, because a lot of people, especially very young people, don't seem to realize that they're essentially being used, and being used for purposes other than what they themselves believe in, namely patriotism, serving the country, protecting people, and so on. The reality is very different. So do some research and look it up, and don't hate the service members for trying to do the right thing. If those service members are not informed as to what is going on in the big picture, they're not the ones to blame. The blame lies elsewhere, and it goes much, much higher up. And I would also like to say this goes, this goes for both parties, Republicans and Democrats alike. If you study foreign policy long enough, you will see a pattern, which is not too pretty. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thanks for listening.